Good morning. Good morning. Good to see everybody. Welcome to church. I'm glad to be with you today. Man, I am happy to be able to stand here and share with you what God has put on my heart. But first, I want to make sure that we welcome our Hockessin location. Can you guys give our Hockessin location a great welcome online? We're so glad that you are joining us as well today. But I do have to take just a minute, if you guys don't mind, look straight into the camera and show some love to our Middletown location. Can you guys show some love? Guys, I want you to know I love you. And I am so proud of the way you show up week after week, help people find Jesus and follow him fully. I am honored to be your location pastor. And I also want to just take a moment and quickly give some honor and appreciation to our lead team for the way that they lead us all the time, every single day. I give some love to our lead team. So thankful that they allowed me the opportunity to share with you today. And then we cannot leave off our pastors, Mark and Susie Johnston, who are on sabbatical right now. Show some love for Pastor Mark and Susie. We love you guys. We're praying for you. We cannot wait to see what God has given you in this time of well-deserved rest. And I'm actually a bit shocked that I am here today, right? Have you ever had one of those moments in your life where you just kind of look around and you're like, how did I get here? Or maybe it's you've come into a place of life and you're like, I'm not so sure that I'm the person for this. Maybe you've told God something like, I'm not sure that I'm the one you want doing this. And I love the honor of getting to stand and share what God has shown me in Scripture. But there are times where I'm praying, I'm like, God, are you sure? Like, am I the one to do this? And so I don't know if you guys relate to that or not, but that's kind of what I have felt coming into this. And it made me think back to a time where my wife, Emily, by the way, my wife, Emily, is over here. You guys show her some love too. She puts up with a lot, and I'm thankful that she does. But I remember early on in our marriage, we're new parents, and we had to make a decision. We felt like God was calling us into something. He was asking us to step into something, and we were making what was a big decision and would be a big decision for our family when we had to decide whether or not she would be a stay-at-home mom and homeschool our kids. Felt like it was just the right decision for our family at the time. But more than that, she felt like God was calling her into that. Now, there was never any doubt. She was rock solid the whole time. She knew that she could do it. She knew God was calling her to it. I'll be honest with you, I married a genius. Like, she is a literal genius, right? Like, there was never any question that she was gonna be able to provide our kids with an amazing education. James, on the other hand, I was 100% on board, but I had questions, okay? Not about her abilities. It was all about mine. You know, I realized that if we made this step, that meant that I was gonna be the one providing for my family. It was all on me, and if this thing failed, it wouldn't have anything to do with her. It was all on me, and it was a big moment. And I found myself going, God, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm the one for this. Now, a little context for you guys. We made that decision. Emily had a really good job at the time. Like I said, she's a genius. She was working for the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and she had a really, really good job. She was bringing home well over half of our household income. So on paper, it made 0 sense for us to make this decision, right? Like, this was not a smart move. And so it just kind of like really, it made that feeling inside of me feel so much more, there was so much more pressure that if this didn't work, it's on me. Anybody else in here relate to any feelings of inadequacy like that in your life? You've come into a place and you're like, hey, man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I have what it takes. So there's a guy in Scripture that we're gonna talk about today. His name is Gideon. You find his story in the Old Testament of the Bible in the book of Judges. And Gideon struggled with those same exact feelings. He didn't know if he was enough. He didn't know if he had what it would take. And Gideon ends up being, he's one of the judges of the nation of Israel. He ends up being what we know of as the greatest judge of all. And the thing was, he was probably the last person you would have ever chosen for that job, right? He came from the tribe of Manasseh, okay? There were 12 tribes in Israel. Manasseh was well known as the smallest and the weakest tribe. Not only that, Gideon was last in his family. Okay, I think we can all relate to that. Having that one person in your family, right, is last in the family. They're like, hey, what can, I can bring something for Thanksgiving or whatever. And we're like, you can, we got it. You can bring maybe a bag of ice or something. Like, we know, Gideon was the last one you're gonna choose, right? That's what the Bible tells us. He was last in his family. So it didn't make sense that Gideon was the guy that was gonna be this judge, that would be this great judge. And there's one more thing about Gideon that I haven't told you yet. He was like a huge scaredy cat, okay? Maybe a nicer way of saying is he struggled with anxiety, but he was afraid of everything, right? Matter of fact, here's the first time we see Gideon in the Bible. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree at Ophrah. Gideon, son of Joash, was threshing wheat at the bottom of the winepress to hide the grain from the Midianites. Now, just to give you a little context here about an ancient winepress, it was really nothing more than a hole in the ground. It was a pit that they would dig out in the ground, and it was tiered, right? And they would line it with stone so that you could set the grapes up on it, and then you would crush the grapes, and the wine would drop to the bottom, and you could gather the wine from there. So Gideon, we find him in the bottom of a wine press, hiding from the Midianites. He is scared. He is afraid. Now, to be fair, the Midianites, they were a rough group of people. They tortured the Israelites. They were constantly coming in and taking all of the resources that the Israelites would gather to survive. And so Gideon is hiding from this group of people who really just like to come in and torment the Israelites. I feel like it's kind of like me being a good Southern boy trying to be a Braves fan in Phillies country. I mean, it is ruthless around here. Every time I try to put on the A and support my team, y'all got something to say about it. Like all the time. I mean, it's constant. Now, of course, I don't go into hiding. Low key, I kind of like it, to be honest with you. I like stirring it up a little bit. So maybe it's not exactly the same, but the Midianites were like, they tormented the Israelites. And Gideon's hiding from them. He's not looking like the one who would become a great judge. Matter of fact, this is the first time the angel of the Lord sees him. He says, mighty hero. The guy hiding. Mighty hero, the Lord is with you. There is nothing about Gideon's actions right now that look like a mighty hero. Like, this is like, hey, unironically calling me the Flash, okay? No one is afraid to take me on in a foot race, okay? It's just not gonna happen. Like, you're not scared if I'm like, hey, let's have a race. You're like, okay, I got this. Like, Gideon is not a mighty hero in this moment. I mean, I guess I can be convinced. It just doesn't look good right now. And when you read his full story, I encourage you to read his whole story. You also see he had zero confidence in God. Like, he was constantly asking God, are you sure? Can you give me a sign? Can you prove it? Over and over and over again. And so for me, if I'm holding interviews for the mighty hero that is going to save Israel, Gideon, you're a good dude, but we're moving forward with another candidate. You know, it's like Gideon's not a hero. But God saw something different. God saw something. I want you to understand that. I want you to see that. God saw something in Gideon that no one else saw, that no one else could see, that Gideon himself didn't even see. And I want you to know that no matter where you are on your faith journey, no matter where you are in life, God looks at your life, and I promise you, he sees something that you don't even see. He sees something in you that the entire world has totally passed by. Maybe even those who are closest to you, they don't see this in you. But God knows that, hey, if you tap into what I have for your life, there's so much more than you could ever dream. It doesn't matter how underqualified you feel. It doesn't matter how overwhelmed you feel or how doubtful you even are. You may even doubt the very existence of God this morning. But he sees something in your life that, hey, if you tap in to what he has, it's just different. So the question is, how do I tap into that? How do I follow him in that way? I'm glad you asked. Get up and go. God is with you. This is a lesson that Gideon is having to learn. This is what we're going to talk about this morning, is the fact that, hey, you know what? All you have to do is get up and go. God is with you. So we're going to fast forward to Gideon's big moment, right? God's called Gideon to lead the people of Israel against the Midianite army, the same army he was hiding from. And Gideon had built his army. Granted, it was a small army, okay? The Bible tells us he had 32,000 people in his army, okay? Just to let you know what that would look like, if you're going to see an Eagles game, that's gonna be less than a half full stadium, okay? It is not a lot of people. And the Bible tells us, we don't know exactly how many Midianites there were, but the Bible does say that when you looked into the valley where they camped and all of their allies were, the camels that they had were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. So it was a huge army that Gideon was gonna go up against with 32,000 men. So God comes to Gideon, he says, hey Gideon, we need to work on your army, man. Gideon's like, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Let's work on the army. And so God comes and says, so Gideon, whoever is timid or afraid may leave this mountain and go home. Now, if I'm Gideon, I'm like, hold on, time out, God. Anybody can just go home? Because I've been asking for a while now. Am I the dude and you won't let me go home? I was hiding when you found me, God. What is this? I can imagine that Gideon is not happy in this moment. And this is what happens. He says, so 22,000 of them went home, leaving only 10,000 who were willing to fight. But the Lord told Gideon, there's still too many. Right, what? He says, bring them down to the spring and I will test them to determine who will go with you and who will not. Now, again, if I'm Gideon, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. God, what are you doing? You know who I am, right? So this is what happens. He says, when Gideon took his warriors down to the water, the Lord told him, says, divide the men into two groups. In one group, you're gonna put all of those who cup the water in their hands and they lap it up with their tongues like dogs. In the other group, put all of those who kneel down and drink with their mouths in the stream. Only 300 of the men drank from their hands. All of the others got down on their knees and drank with their mouths in the stream. So at least now I'm Gideon and I'm going, okay, so God's trying to split this group again. At least I'm only losing 300, right? With these 300 men, I will rescue you and give you victory over the Midianites. Send all the others home, Gideon. And I'm like, what? I mean, imagine you're Gideon in this moment. You are afraid of literally everything, including your own shadow. And God's like, 300 men, you're gonna go in this army with camels that are numerous as the sands on the seashore, that you're standing on the mountain, you look down and you can't even see a blade of grass. There's so many of them. 300 guys, we're gonna do this. And I'm gonna be honest with you, as I'm looking at this and reading this, I think, man, this doesn't seem fair. This doesn't seem fair. God obviously knows that Gideon is worried and doubtful and anxious. And then he takes away what little bit of security that Gideon had. He had a small army, sure, but I mean, I don't know if we got any math majors in here, but 32,000 is better than 300, right? God took away 99% of Gideon's army, and it just doesn't make sense unless you kind of see what God is doing here. So, nerd alert, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, right? I love some Star Wars. Now, I'm not the kind of nerd that dresses up as a Jedi and goes to the movies kind of thing anymore, but I love Star Wars. And you can really divide Star Wars fans into about 3 different camps, right? You've got the original trilogy. Luke Skywalker is our hero. And then you've got the prequel trilogy, Anakin Skywalker. That's where my son's group, man. He loves Anakin Skywalker, that prequel trilogy. And then the most recent one, the sequel trilogy with Rey. And so I'm the original trilogy, okay? Not to give away my age or anything, but I am Luke Skywalker, baby. And then you've got this famous scene in the Millennium Falcon. And C-3PO is playing this game with Chewbacca on the Millennium Falcon over here. You know, the famous scene, let the Wookiee win, right? But something else is happening at that time. Luke is there and he's trying to learn how to use a lightsaber, and he's not good at it. He's got this like floating orb that's kind of going around him, everything, and it's shooting lasers at him, and he's trying to learn how to block them with a lightsaber. And as I said, he's not good at it. And in that moment, Obi-Wan, his master, does something that just seems kind of stupid. He's like, how about we blindfold you? In essence, he just puts a blindfold on Luke and somehow thinks that's gonna make him better. And I think what's happening here with God and Gideon is a lot like what's happening there, in that God is stripping something away from Gideon, but it's because he wants to replace it with something so much better. He wants to give him something. And you know, God does that in our lives, right? He will strip something away from us, but he always wants to give us something better. In the scene in the movie, Obi-Wan knows that yes, the sight is good. It's a great sense, but there's something better that you can tap into. There's another sense. It's called the Force. When you get it, it's better than anything else you can have. And so I'm gonna blindfold you so you can learn to use that new sense. And God is doing the same thing with Gideon. He does the same thing with us. I think about things that maybe sometimes he takes away, he strips away from us, and it seems kind of cruel at the time. Maybe it's a relationship that you were involved in, and this relationship is going to last forever. This person is my ride or die, and something happens, right? And they're gone. And it devastates you at the time, but through all of it, all of a sudden, maybe it's even in your J group, you find a group of people that you would have never found any other way, and you begin to understand relationship and friendship and love in a way you never knew before. Or maybe I'm thinking about someone who might have, you've worked so hard to achieve your dream job, and it's everything you ever thought it could be. You are in the place where, hey, it's your sweet spot, right? Something happens. You lose that job, it's gone, and God doesn't even replace it with something in the same field. You get nothing like what you've worked for. But through that, through the freedom and the time that comes in that, you begin to tap into something that you didn't even know existed inside of you. And you find a true calling that God placed in your life that you didn't even know about because you were focused on your dream and not his dream. And so he strips something away and he replaces it with something so much better. In Gideon's case here, he's stripping away this need that Gideon has for self-reliance and knowledge, for faith in God. He wants to show Gideon that, hey, you can trust in me. You can have confidence in me. And Gideon is learning this lesson that I think all of us need to learn. Gideon, get up and go. God is with you. God's not gonna leave you. He's not gonna forsake you. He is with you. Just get up and go. Do what I'm calling you to do. All right, so it's time, right? Gideon he's got something resembling an army. And God says, hey, Gideon, it's time. We're gonna go. We're gonna do this. Watch this. He says, get up, go down to the Midianite camp, for I have given you victory over them. I love this. I love this. I don't know if you see it. Do you see it? God's not talking about a battle. God's not talking about a fight. He says, Gideon, you're not going into battle. You're not going into a fight. You're going to claim a victory. We sang it this morning, right? Hey, when all I see is a battle, God, you see the victory, and it's right here. Can we give him some praise for that this morning? And I love how God kind of like, he's trying to reframe the way that Gideon sees everything with this sense of faith and confidence in God. But there's something even better here. Watch this. He says, Gideon, but if you're afraid, I mean, come on, this is Gideon we're talking about, right? He says, if you're afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what the Midianites are saying, and you will be greatly encouraged. Now, I read this and I'm thinking, if I'm God, now, again, you should read the entire story of Gideon because there's a lot that, Gideon would ask God for a sign and God would give it to him. And he would ask him for another one and God would give it to him. And then he would say, God, are you sure? And God would say, yes, I'm sure. He did this 6 different times. And God had every right to be mad at Gideon in this moment if he was still afraid, right? God has constantly shown Gideon that, yes, you are the one. Yes, I am going with you. But God speaks to Gideon right there in the place that he needs it, in his fear and his doubt and his anxiety. And I'm telling you, if you're in the room and you struggle with that fear and that doubt and that anxiety, God is not mad at you for having that. He will meet you right there in it, and he will pull you along with him. He will give you the confidence that you need. He's not angry because you are feeling the feelings that he created you to have. And this is a really cool thing. So Gideon, he's like, okay, so I'm gonna go and listen because yes, I'm still afraid. I am Gideon. So Gideon crept up, as someone who is afraid would do. He crept up just as a man was telling his companion about a dream. And the man said, I had a dream, and in my dream, a loaf of barley bread came tumbling down into the Midianite camp. It hit a tent, turned it over, and knocked it flat. I don't know what he had to eat or drink with his barley bread the night before, but obviously it did not agree with him. He's having these horrible dreams, but I'm just like, it's crazy to me. Like, we've got to, Gideon, God has done miraculous signs for you, and God sends you to overhear this. This is supposed to do something. It's a strange dream, no doubt. But my favorite part is this. His companion answered, your dream can mean only one thing. Now, I want you guys to imagine where we are right now. Gideon is crept down behind this tent. He's listening to these 2 ancient soldiers. And one of them's talking about a dream. And the other one just all of a sudden becomes a dream interpreter. Dude, I can tell you what that means. It's a piece of bread rolling down a mountain, man. He says, God has given Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite, victory over Midian and all its allies. I don't know how he got there, but he did. And Gideon is there and he's listening to it. Now, I imagine Gideon in this moment, right? He's scared. He's fearful of everything. So I imagine, it says he crept up. I imagine them kind of hunkered down behind this tent. They're listening. They're overhearing this thing. I imagine Gideon's terrified. He's shaking right now because what if they see me, right? There's a lot of people here. And I imagine this being Gideon's reaction. This is just in my mind. This is the James version of the Bible, okay? I just imagine Gideon being looking at a servant and says, and these guys are dumb. Dumb. But he's like, wait, they're afraid of me? Wait, they're afraid of me. Let's go. We got this, right? I see that happening because what happens this is crazy, right? But here's how I know, because this is what happens next. Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, and he bowed in worship before the Lord. Now, the reason this is so important is when you read his story, this is the first time that Gideon ever truly worshiped God. There were other times in his story where he was worshiping God, but every other time he worshiped God, it was out of fear. So there was a time where he worships God because he's afraid that God is gonna be mad at him, or he's afraid God is gonna kill him because he's doubting God. And those were the catalysts for his worship every other time. But this time, he finally has confidence in God. He finally believes that God is going to accomplish something through him, and he bowed and truly worshiped God in that moment because he finally got it. Now, this part of the story ends with Gideon and his 300 men going into battle. The Midianite army and all of their allies are completely wiped out, and Gideon's army never raises a sword. God confused all of the enemy and just took care of them. And I know if you're like me, this is what you're thinking. Well, God, if you could have done that the entire time, why did we have to go through this entire process? If I'm Gideon, I'm like, God, this doesn't make sense. If you could have done this, why did we go through all of this other stuff? But you remember I said God sometimes, he sees a bigger picture for your life than you see. God knew what he needed Gideon to be later. He needed him to become that greatest judge that Israel had ever had. But first, he had to make sure he had a man who had faith, who had confidence, who knew that God had his back. And that's what he was doing in this moment. He was giving Gideon the confidence he needed. And I just wonder if there are people in the room or listening online today or at any of our other locations that would say, hey, I get that. I know that God is calling me to something. I know he wants me to do more. I know there's something more for my life. I just don't have a lot of confidence right now. I don't have confidence in myself. I don't have confidence in God. You might even be in one of our environments today and you say, I don't even know that I have confidence that he exists. It's okay. But I wonder if I could let you leave today and let you borrow some of my confidence. Because there's a few things that I'm confident in when it comes to God and how he looks at us. Number one, I am confident that God loves you. He loves you. You are the apple of his eye. He knit you together so well in your mother's womb, and he has a purpose and a plan. The Bible tells us that we are his masterpiece, and he loves you. Number two, I would tell you, not only does he love you, God likes you. I believe that God likes you. He's not mad at your fear or anxiety. He's not irritated with you. He doesn't want to be distanced from you. No, he likes you. He wants to be in close relationship with you. I think back to when he was creating the world. After every creation, what did he say? It is good. I don't think he was talking about his own goodness, although he could have. He was saying, I like it because it's good. It's good because I like it. No, he doesn't always like some of the things we do or the decisions we make. It's the same thing with my kids. Sometimes they make decisions I don't like or they do things I don't like. But at the end of the day, I still like them. And then the third thing I would say to you that I'm confident in is that God cares for you. God cares deeply for you. He is not going to leave you to do it on your own. In fact, all the way back in Genesis, when mankind chose to go their own way, God spent the rest of the Bible, you see him relentlessly pursuing man to come back into a relationship with him because he cares for you. He doesn't want you to feel fear and anxiety and doubt. He wants to fix that, and he is pursuing you to fix it because he cares for you. So that's what I'm confident in today. But just like Gideon, you have to realize, you have to get up and go and realize that God is with you. So I was telling you guys earlier about the story, the decision that we had to make as a family. You know, Emily's gonna be a stay-at-home mom and we're gonna homeschool the kids, and I was afraid that I would be the one to cause it to fail. And I wish I could tell you that overnight, God fixed it all and gave me confidence that it would never happen. I wish I could tell you that I never had any more fear or doubt or anxiety, but that wouldn't be true. I did. It would creep up at different times, and if I'm being perfectly honest with you, there are still times where it feels like the walls are closing in and it could all collapse and it's gonna be my fault. But God's always provided. Sometimes in some crazy ways. I could tell you some stories about how God provided that would blow your mind, but he's always provided. So we made that decision about 15 years ago. About 2 weeks ago, we graduated our first child, and we couldn't be, yeah, right? We're so happy, like, hey, Emily, we did it. We didn't mess him up too bad. One down, one to go. His sister is in middle school. She's thriving. But yeah, we couldn't be more proud of Matthew. He's known as Matt around here. He serves on our Middletown production team. Matter of fact, Middletown, you can turn around, wave at him, embarrass him all you want. But we're so proud of everything. Like just a couple of months ago, he was accepted to UD. He's gonna start school in the fall. And yeah, we're really proud of everything that he's doing. God has supplied everything we needed along the way. I just had to learn, James, you've got to get up and go. God is with you. I've got you. I've got your back. Just follow me, listen to me, and I've got you. So if you're here today, and maybe there's something in your life that he's telling you, hey, you need to take this next step. You need to do this thing. There's something in your heart that he's been pushing you toward. I don't know what it is. Maybe you're trying to figure out what your major is gonna be coming up. Like fall is right around the corner. School is starting. I don't know what my major is. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Or maybe there's a relationship. You're thinking, hey, it's time to take it to the next level. Maybe you're like, hey, is it time for me to ask her to marry me? Or maybe you're a young family and you're like, hey, is it time for us to start a family? I don't know what these decisions are for you. Maybe you're thinking about, hey, it might be a time to change a job or start a business. Or maybe it has more to do with your faith journey. Maybe God is calling you to finally step forward and truly become a partner with him in everything he's doing in this kingdom, in Journey City. And he's asking you to put him first in your finances and become a partner with him on all of the changed lives that we see around here. Or maybe he's been telling you for a while, it's time to get off the sidelines and serve. You need to go and join that J team that you've been thinking about for the last 18 months. It's time. And plugged in step 2 is today, right after the gathering. I don't know what it is. But I do know this, that when those things pop up in our lives, it can feel big, it can feel scary, and it can fill you with anxiety and doubt. But I want you to walk out of here today with confidence, knowing that God has got you. If he's asking you to do it, he's gonna qualify you for it. All you have to do is get up and go, because God is with you. And I just wonder if you're in the room today and you would say, hey, this is me. I know that God is working in my life. He's got something that's like in the back of my mind, and he just keeps like pushing me and like nudging me and saying, hey, you need to do this. But I'm lacking some confidence. I'm lacking confidence in myself. I'm lacking confidence in God. I don't know that I'm the person for this. If you would say, hey, I get that. I'm with you and I accept this. I receive this today. I would love to pray this over all of us. Father, we love you. We thank you for the way that you love us. And God, I just pray that you would give us confidence. God, that you would speak into our lives in a way that would calm the doubt and fear and anxiety that we're carrying about whatever it is you're calling us to step into. God, I pray that you would give us a vision for what you're going to accomplish through our obedience, and then give us the confidence to walk boldly into it. Father, we know you can, we believe you can, and we can't wait to see what it looks like on the other side. And if you could just stay in this moment with me for just a few more minutes, I would just say that maybe you're in the room today and you're like, hey, all of this sounds good, but I'm realizing in this moment that I don't really even have a relationship to speak of with God. And I'm not talking about like this superficial relationship. Like, I want a relationship that is gonna take me from a spirit of fear to a spirit of faith. I'm ready to say, hey, I believe in you. I will make you leader and Lord of my life. I believe that Jesus came and died for my sins, and I want that forgiveness. And I would just say, if you're in the room and you say, hey, that's me today. If you're online or in one of our other locations today, and you would say, hey, that's me. I wonder if you would just right now, with your hearts focused on God, just pray this prayer with me. Say, dear God, I know that sometimes I can be doubtful and fearful and anxious. But God, I want to walk in confidence. I want to know that you've got my back. But first, I know we need a relationship. So God, I accept today your son, Jesus. I believe he's the Son of God. I believe he died for my sins, and I believe he rose again, and he paid the penalty. And through him, I can be saved. And I accept that right now. And God, I thank you for saving me. And I just wonder if that's you. If you just prayed that prayer in the room, would you have the courage? If you're online, if you're gathering in one of our other environments, would you have the courage just to raise a hand and say, hey, I am putting my faith in Jesus today. I am gonna have the courage to put my faith in him. If you're online, type faith in the chat. Let us know, hey, today I'm moving from a spirit of fear to a spirit of faith. And Journey, would you join me in celebrating all of those who have changed lives today?